Year was 1945. Germany lay shattered under the weight of defeat. Cities turned to ashes. Skies once filled with bombers, now eerily quiet. Amid the rubble, the world was trying to rebuild, but, for one young American soldier named Robert Hayes, the war was not entirely over for him. It had left something unfinished, something that went beyond the battlefield. Robert had arrived in southern Germany as part of the U.S. Army's occupation forces. He was only 24, but his eyes carried the heaviness of years. He had seen men die, friends vanish, and whole towns burned into nothing. Yet, for the first time, the mission before him wasn't about war, it was about peacekeeping. The camp he was assigned to stood on the edge of a small town named Land. The people there were hollow-eyed, frightened, and hungry. Every day, German civilians came to the camp's fence, begging for food. Most soldiers looked away. Robert didn't. He couldn't. He saw in their faces something familiar: pain. Not as enemies, but as humans. It was one afternoon when he first saw Anna Keller. She was standing outside the camp, holding a small basket, waiting silently with other women for scraps of leftover bread. She couldn't have been more than her clothes were torn, her hair tied messily, yet her posture had a quiet dignity that caught his attention. Her blue eyes met his for just a second before she looked away, embarrassed. That moment should have ended there, but it didn't. The next day, she came again, and the next. Robert began to notice. When the guards weren't looking, he would slip a small piece of bread or a can of beans through the wire. The first time he did, Anna hesitated, then whispered a quiet "Danke." Her voice was soft, cracked, but filled with gratitude. Weeks passed. Their exchanges became routine, quick glances, stolen smiles, a few whispered words through the fence. Robert learned that Anna had lost her brother on the Eastern Front, her father in an air raid, and her mother to illness the winter before. She was alone, surviving on what little she could find. For Robert, who had lost a brother at Normandy, her pain echoed his own. Somehow, in a world divided by uniforms and flags, they found a strange peace in each other's presence. But love, in times of war, was never simple. One evening, as Robert passed her a small chocolate bar, the first she'd ever tasted, an officer spotted him. He was called in and reprimanded. Fraternizing with civilians, especially Germans, was strictly forbidden. "She's the enemy," Hayes, his commander, barked. "You give her food today, she'll stab you tomorrow." Robert said nothing, but deep inside, he knew she wasn't his enemy. That night, he found her waiting at the fence again. The cold wind howled around them. "They'll punish you if they see us," she whispered. "I don't care," he said quietly. "I just wanted to see if you were safe." Her eyes glistened. "Why?" He hesitated. "Because I don't know anymore what enemy means." Days turned into months. The camp slowly transitioned as peace agreements settled. The soldiers prepared for departure, but Robert's heart had anchored itself to a place he was supposed to leave behind. Then came the day when Anna didn't appear. He waited. Morning turned to afternoon. Panic crawled up his chest. Finally, the local boy told him Anna had been taken by Allied officers for questioning. Her name had been linked to a German supply clerk accused of aiding the Nazis. Robert's blood ran cold. He used every favor, every connection he had to find her. Finally, he discovered her held in a makeshift detention camp outside Munich. She wasn't a criminal, just caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Robert didn't think twice. He found a way to reach the camp under the pretext of delivering supplies. When he saw her again, she was thin, bruised, but alive. The look in her eyes, half disbelief, relief, was enough to make him forget every rule he was breaking. "Why did you come?" she whispered through the wire. "Because I couldn't leave you behind," he said. He promised her that he would get her out, and he meant it. Weeks later, he managed to secure her release by convincing his superior that she was helping in translation duties for civilian aid. It was a lie, but it worked. Anna was transferred under his supervision. For the first time, they could speak freely, without hiding behind fences. Every evening, after his shift, they would walk near the river that flowed quietly beyond the camp. They talked about everything: books, home, music, what peace might feel like. Anna would hum old German songs softly, and Robert would listen, smiling. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. But fate had another test waiting. Robert received orders his division was returning to the U.S. in 2 weeks. The thought of leaving tore him apart. "Come with me," he said one night. Anna looked at him, heartbroken. "You know they'll never allow that. I'm still marked as a former enemy civilian. They'd never let me through." "Then I'll stay." "You can't," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Your home is there. Mine is here. Maybe the world won't let us be together." He took her hands. "Then we'll make our own world." In the final week, Robert did something unthinkable. He sought out a local priest, one who had survived the war in hiding. He begged him to perform a small ceremony. No papers, no witnesses, no uniforms, just a promise. On a quiet evening, under the remains of a bombed-out chapel, with a single candle flickering between them, Robert and Anna exchanged vows. He slipped a small metal ring he'd crafted from a spent bullet casing onto her finger. The priest spoke softly. "What God joins, no war can tear apart." For a brief moment, the war disappeared. There were no nations, no uniforms, no fences, only two souls who had found each other amidst destruction. Robert left Germany weeks later. His heart stayed behind. But life had its strange turns. Months after returning to America, he received a letter from a relief organization. Anna had been cleared of all wartime suspicion and was working with Allied relief nurses in Munich. He wrote to her. Every week, the letters became their lifeline. 2 years passed this way until one morning a telegram arrived. Visa approved. Anna Keller to arrive New York Harbor, June 1947. Robert stood on the pier as the ship arrived, his heart pounding like it had on the battlefield. When she stepped off the deck, wearing a simple dress and the same metal ring, he knew this was his victory. They married legally in the U.S. that summer, under clear blue skies. People talked. Some disapproved. "A German woman," they whispered, "after everything." But Robert didn't care. To him, she wasn't German. She was Anna. Years later, when they told their children the story of how they met, they would laugh and say, "It began with a piece of bread and ended with a promise." In their living room hung a small framed photo. The bombed-out chapel, a flickering candle between two shadows. It was more than a memory. It was proof that even in the darkest times, love finds its way through the ashes. Because love, as Robert and Anna proved, isn't bound by sides, fences, or wars. It's bound only by hearts that refuse to surrender.